big setback really that's coming through in the sporting world. India's wrestler Vinesh Phogat, who was all over social media, she was being celebrated for her victory in the quarterfinal, and it was spectacular. And all of this at the Paris Olympics now has been disqualified. The big headlines of the day: she was found to be 100 grams overweight on the second day of the competition in the 50-kilogram category, and she will now have to miss that medal that so many of us were counting on at the Paris Olympics. So yes, a disappointment. But reacting sharply, the Indian Olympic Association has issued a statement and has informed in the statement about what led to the disqualification of Vinesh Phogat. The Prime Minister also has praised Vinesh, saying that you are a champion among champions, you are India's pride and an inspiration for each and every Indian. The Indian Olympic Association President P.T. Usha had been directed by the Prime Minister to take appropriate action on this. Let's discuss what has happened today. And Alka Tomar is a former Indian wrestler, and she's joining us to break this down for us. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Alka ji. You tell us, should Phogat have competed in this category, a higher weight category? क्या 50 किलोग्राम के कैटेगरी में compete करना गलत फैसला था, अलका जी?
देखिए, इस टाइम पे तो हम गलत भी कह सकते हैं कि भाई आप एक ओलंपिक लेवल में अगर आपका वेट नहीं आ रहा है तो कहीं ना कहीं आपसे भी कुछ चूक हुई है, कहीं ना कहीं आपकी भी ये खामी हम कह सकते हैं एक तरीके से। और उससे पहले पर आपने वेट भी लाके दिखाया सभी को, आप फाइनल में भी चली गई हैं और आपको पता भी था कि नेक्स्ट डे भी आपका वेट होना है, तो आपको प्रिपेयर रहना था इसमें। और रही दूसरे वेट की बात, तो कोई ऑप्शन विनेश के पास नहीं था। 53 केजी था। 53 केजी में अंतिम पंगाल पहले ही क्वालिफाई कर चुकी थी वर्ल्ड चैंपियनशिप में, पहले ही राउंड में। विनेश उस टाइम पे फिट नहीं थी, उसने ट्रायल भी नहीं दिया था, तो उसके पास 50 केजी का ही ऑप्शन बचा था। 53 या 50 केजी में ही विनेश खेल सकती थी, क्योंकि उससे ऊपर वो ओलंपिक में या एशियाड में नहीं खेली है। बस एशियन चैंपियनशिप में तो वो 55 केजी में उसने मेडल जीता है, तो 55 केजी तो नहीं है, लेकिन उसके पास कोई ऑप्शन नहीं बचा था 50 के अलावा। तो पर जिस तरह से उसने 50 केजी भी लाके दिखाया और फाइनल में भी वो चली गई। उसके बाद नेक्स्ट डे, क्योंकि उसका वेट काफी ज्यादा रहता है, उसके बाद आपने घटाया उस वेट को और उस वेट में आपने फाइनल में भी प्रवेश कर लिया। और उसके बीच में जो पूरा दिन आपने रिकवरी की, उसकी वजह से कहीं ना कहीं मुझे लगता है थोड़ी चूक हो गई है। पूरा दिन आप डिहाइड्रेट हुए, क्योंकि आपकी फाइटें इतनी ज्यादा टफ थी, आपका पूरे दिन का शेड्यूल बहुत ज्यादा टाइट रहा। और उसके बाद आप उस बीच में भूल गए कि नेक्स्ट डे भी आपको वेट देना है, नेक्स्ट डे भी आपका वेट होगा उसी तरीके से जैसे फर्स्ट डे हुआ था। तो कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ी सी चूक हुई है कोचिस से भी और जो सपोर्टिंग स्टाफ है उनसे भी। तो ये चूक हमको बहुत ज्यादा भारी पड़ी है, क्योंकि हमारा जो गोल्ड मेडल आना था या सिल्वर मेडल आना था वो हमें नहीं मिल पाएगा।
जी अलका जी, ये बड़ी निराशा की बात है. देयर इज नो टेकिंग अवे फ्रॉम the disappointment that the country feels right now, including of course in a big way Vinesh Phogat. But आपने कहा कि ऑप्शन नहीं था, ये कैटेगरी में फाइट करना मुनासिब था, लेकिन अभी क्या ऑप्शंस है विनेश फोगाट के पास? ये जो डिसअपॉइंटमेंट हुआ है, व्हाट कुड बी हर नेक्स्ट गोल आफ्टर दिस? आगे जाके उनको क्या करना चाहिए?
देखिए, आगे तो विनेश को बहुत ही ज़्यादा मेंटली अपने आप को प्रिपेयर करना पड़ेगा, मेंटली स्ट्रॉन्ग बहुत ज़्यादा उसको करना पड़ेगा, खुद से ही लड़ना पड़ेगा उसको अभी, कि भाई कहीं न कहीं उसका भी फ़ॉल्ट रहा है इस वेट ना आने में, क्योंकि एक रेसलर का भी बहुत बड़ा रोल होता है खुद का भी, कि हमें अपना वेट लाना ही है और जो सपोर्टिंग स्टाफ है उसका भी वेट आना है। कुछ टाइम तक तो वो शॉकिंग ही रहेगी कि यार ये क्या हो गया? ठीक है, तो नेक्स्ट प्लान यही रहेगा कि भैया जो आपने खोया है उसको पाने के लिए आपको मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी, फिर से ही वो मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी। इस टाइम पे वैसे विनेश बहुत ज़्यादा फिट है, बहुत ज़्यादा फिज़िकली फिट है, मेंटली भी फिट है। इस टाइम पे तो थोड़ा-सा उसको डिस्टर्ब हो गई है कि भई आपका मेडल आपके हाथ से निकल गया, तो बहुत ज़्यादा डिस्टर्ब है। लेकिन फिटनेस के मामले में इस टाइम पे वो ज़्यादा फिट है और थोड़ा-सा मेंटली प्रिपेयर उसको होना पड़ेगा। अगले नेक्स्ट जो कॉम्पिटिशन आएँगे, उनके लिए आपको शुरुआत से आपको अब स्टार्टिंग से आपको शुरुआत करनी पड़ेगी। अपने टारगेट आपको सेट करने पड़ेंगे। 4 साल का आपको लंबा इंतज़ार करना पड़ेगा इस ओलंपिक मेडल के लिए। तो आपको बहुत ज़्यादा मेंटली भी और हेल्थ वाइज़ भी आपको स्ट्रॉन्ग रहना पड़ेगा।
जी बिल्कुल, ये तो अभी तय हो गया है कि मेंटल स्ट्रेंथ पे काम करना एक एथलीट के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है, अलका जी। लेकिन ये बताइए, क्योंकि ये आपने कहा कि थोड़ी सी चूक भी हुई हो सकती है सपोर्टिंग स्टाफ की, कोच की, इस बारे में कहिए, क्योंकि थोड़े लेसन हमें सीखने पड़ेंगे। इतनी बड़ी इवेंट में अगर हमने ये हक खो दिया है कि हम ये फाइट कर पाए, ये रेसलिंग मैच में पार्टिसिपेट कर पाए, तो हमारे लेसन्स क्या होंगे, हमने इसमें से क्या सीख लेनी है?
देखिए, हमें यही लेसन सीखने को मिलता है कि भैया इस लेवल पे आप पहुँच गए हैं, तो आपको आपको जो गलती आपने की है कि एट अ टाइम पे आप गए हैं वेट चेक करने के लिए और समय नहीं मिल पाया आपको, तो आप आधा घंटा पहले और जा सकते थे और जो गलती हमसे हुई है, टाइम हमारा निकल गया और वेट हमारा 100 ग्राम अटका रहा, तो हमको थोड़ा आधा घंटा या 1 घंटा पहले ही हमें वहाँ पे पहुँच जाना चाहिए था। अपना मेडिकल चेकअप, अपना वेट सेट करने का हमें टाइम मिल जाता है। अगर हम पहले ही चले जाते हैं, तो आपको प्रिपेयर रहना है बहुत ज़्यादा, आपको अलर्ट रहना है।
अलका जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच। आपने ये पर्सपेक्टिव दिया हमें, हमें ये एंगल्स जो डिस्कशन के लिए है, हमारे गेस्ट हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे हैं, तो वी विल टेक दिस अप। थैंक you very much for joining us. But meanwhile, before we get into this discussion, Fogat's nutritionist, Dinshaw Patriwala, has explained the practice of this weight cut that would actually happen. It's a crucial part of reducing body weight rapidly. Listen to what he said about this in Paris.
Wrestlers usually participate in a weight category less than their natural weight. It gives them an advantage since they are fighting with less stronger opponents. The process of weight cut prior to the weight in the morning involves a calculated restriction of food and water, and besides this the athlete needs to sweat, and that sweating is done with sauna and with exercise. Now this weight cut has the benefit of putting you into a lighter weight category, but does cause weakness and energy depletion, and this is counterproductive to participation. So most wrestlers will thereafter go in for some amount of energy restoration with limited water and high energy foods, and these are usually given after the weigh-in.
Let's get perspective on this. Fitness expert Dr. Siddhant Bhargava is joining us, along with author and sports journalist Vedam Jaishankar. Gentlemen, thank you for making the time. Dr. Bhargava, coming to you first. Perhaps you just heard what Dr. Padriwala has said about this entire weight cut. How difficult a process is it for an athlete? Is it par for the course, or is it unique, something that you really need to work on and you can get it wrong?
So, I mean, this is not shocking news at all. Every athlete in sports where weight categories exist, so be it UFC, be it wrestling, weight cuts are a very usual practice. Now, these are extremely unhealthy practices which are done for exactly the same reason that Dr. Pardiwala mentioned. Athletes are usually 2, 3, 4, or even 5 kgs higher than their weight category. They spend about 24 hours in trying to get this cut in. And if you ever open YouTube, get your videos in, you'll see they are at their weakest at the time of the weigh-in. A lot of athletes are actually so weak that they are unable to stand on the weighing scale at the weigh-in. The process involves getting a sauna, steam, sweatsuits, sweating out everything that your body has. Along with this, you cut off the intake of carbohydrates and salts in order for your body to not retain any water whatsoever. Now, this is supremely unhealthy because you are at your weakest then. You could be dehydrated, you could have electrolyte imbalances, but unfortunately, this is the norm in the industry. Now, post the weigh-in, they start amping up on high energy foods, high water dense foods to sort of refill their body reserves with water so that they're back to optimal level for the fight. Now, unfortunately, this is the norm and this is the practice. But in my opinion, this should change. I think an athlete should be fighting and should be weighed in right before the fight so that they're fighting at the weight at which they're supposed to fight and not doing weigh-ins and cutting water before.
As far as strategy is concerned for a wrestling as a tournament, but I imagine this would work in several other sports and for several other athletes, and you're saying that this is the norm, but it shouldn't be, because then you're harming your body. Vedam Jaishankar, in your long career, how many times have you come across or reported such issues, especially at an event as the size of which is the Olympian size that we are talking about, and missing a medal over here weighs so deeply, not just for an athlete, but for a country at large?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually shattering. And you don't really come across these very often, But as far as India is concerned, we've never come across this situation at all. But yes, some of these practices could be termed as unhealthy. But the first thing that sports people or the sports management people will talk about is that it is strategy, and they have to strategize. Probably they strategize that she would be more effective at a lower weight category rather than a higher weight category, and try to bring her there. It's not that it's anything new. I mean, it's done worldwide, but you need an entire team to work on it, and they would have worked on it. That it's not just the athlete alone, but you need the trainer, you need the doctor, you need the dietitian, you need a whole lot of ecosystem around it, and they would have worked on it. And it's not something that is done overnight. It's done over 6 months, 8 months, sometimes a year or two, so that they decide that this is the weight category which is ideally suited for them. It's not just in wrestling, it happens in boxing also. And they go for it. But at the same time, it is draining. Like, for instance, take her case yesterday. Supposing she had come through, let's say she had weighed the right way, but would she have been up to it to fight tonight? When I say fight tonight, it's not just the weight. She needs that rest. She hasn't rested the whole night. She was with her bodysuit. She was into saunas. She was doing cycling. She was barely eating, absolutely no water. A whole lot of other things that she went through. So what sort of a mental makeup would you have when you go into a gold medal match, when your entire night you've been worrying only about your weight? So I think we need to move away from this, so that sport is healthy. Sport should be healthy. It should be very good. It should be healthy. But again, I can understand where the athlete comes from, because this training is not just 1 or 2 years. She's spent a lifetime training for this.
Correct.
It's not 4 years. It's a lifetime of training, right from the age of 8, 9, 10, or whatever. Right from then onwards, and you are reaching towards this pinnacle, because a medal at the Olympics would have opened so many doors for her. Fame, fortune, branding, you name it. And now she was virtually at the cusp of it.
Right.
And just 90 grams has snatched it away from you.
I think such a small margin.
It's not just mentally strong.
Correct.
She needs a lot of help now to get out of this.
To get over this. So physical kind of your attributes, those would be managed with calculations, Dr. Bhargav. As far as mental makeup is concerned, and like Vedam is pointing out as well, you are trained over a long period of time to keep that balance going, and at that crucial juncture, you need an entire team to come through. So if we were to kind of determine what we need to do better in the future by maintaining whatever we need to, you said these are norms that have existed for a period of time, but if we were to do this better and not be in a similar situation, what would your suggestions be, Doctor?
So, I mean, the first thing is that I'm pretty sure she must have done this for every match preceding the gold medal match also. This is not the first time that she and her team are doing this, and this is certainly not the last. There has been some kind of a calculation error, or her body had become stubborn for whatsoever reason. It might be climatic conditions, mental conditions, or pure mistakes on the part of the team. Because all of this is very, very calculated. When they start gaining weight pre-match, they know how much weight they're gaining, and they know how much weight they're supposed to cut pre-match also before the weigh-in. So I think there are set standards to this. You start preparing for this 2 days in advance. You start cutting your salts, your carbohydrates. Then you start restricting water. Then you start exercising, doing a lot of cardio. You start sweating. Then there comes the sauna. And then you're just lying in a body sweatsuit. So all of these calculations are in place. This is done in the sport of weightlifting, boxing, UFC, and wrestling. So if I have to attribute something that could have been better, I think this is a lack of planning. But again, I think it could just be a stroke of bad luck because I'm pretty sure this activity has happened throughout the Olympics and something has gone wrong the night before the finals.
So, bad planning or just bad luck? Now, that is up in the air. But Vedam, we've seen the involvement of the Prime Minister, just to kind of highlight how large an issue this is as far as India's hopes and aspirations at the Olympics is concerned. That is significant. And then it seems like we've moved to take this up at the highest level at the Olympics. To explain to us the significance of this.
See, as far as the Prime Minister is concerned, we really have to see the amount of hard work that the government itself has put in. So in India, we do not have infrastructure for sports. It's the bottom line. We just don't have the infrastructure for sports. You may say we are a 1.4 billion, but how many of them are really exposed to sports? And even that only maybe in the major cities. But in many of the other places, you don't have access at all to sports. Cricket is an honorable exception now, but even that is only the last 10, 15 years. It was not so before that. So for the Prime Minister, actually, the Kalo India, the top, and a whole lot of other things, the government has involved itself in. It's also encouraged a lot of corporates to get into it. There's a lot of CSR activity going into it. And we now see corporates also actually putting up academies, So that way there is a lot invested by the government, but it is just a start. It will take more than 10 years. We've already come a long way in these last 10, 12 years.
Yes.
But we still have a long way to go.
Yes.
So, and Prime Minister involving himself is actually excellent because it shows everybody that if you do well, yes, your Prime Minister is there to back you.
Right.
Whether it's
like you're pointing out, we are still at a nascent stage of building the infrastructure, the entire machinery that makes us go out and win medals and big medals at big events like the Olympics, and that's work in progress. And perhaps we may have run short. At least that seems to be the kind of evidence that we're talking about by way of what's happened in this particular case with Vinesh Phogat. We will keep